Welcome to the Backward Professor Chess videos. I've been called backward before. No, this is the Backyard Professor Chess videos. I have a wonderful Chessercise game to share with you because I'm basically answering a request of one of my comments. This particular game I want to illustrate, Chessercise with you as it were, discuss the imbalances, ideas on tactics, how to improve our chess and understanding, because it is through the playing of the Grandmaster games that we improve our chess. This one is by David Bronstein, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. A wonderful collection of his games. Bronstein missed the World Championships by just one hair. He was at the upper top 5 greatest chess players at one point in his career. So far as I'm aware, he's still alive. This particular book is a collection of his games in his honor. And Cadogan Chess Books. What's the year? 1995. Well, yeah, that's been quite a while. I honestly haven't heard if he's dead or not. If he is, I am going to mourn his death. He's a fantastic chess player. He's the one that put together the 1953 Zurich chess tournament. Anyway, Bronstein's playing white. Someone asked me just recently, well, I've seen several of the imbalances being used in Grandmaster games from way back when, but what about today? What about in our day? This particular game was played in 1994, and there are other chess games. Every chess game uses the imbalances. It's a matter of beginning to recognize that they're using the imbalances, right? Every chess game uses the imbalances. For instance, what do you notice? Pawns in the center, right? Everyone's vying for the center. The battle for central space. Neither side has the advantage yet, but they're certainly fighting for it. This is the idea of striving to create imbalances or else to utilize what imbalances you have. Bronstein brings up his knight. We can see that he's hitting the d5 square pretty hard at this point. It's going to be a tense battle, and of course, bishop to b4 puts the pins the knight to the king, right? So this bishop move is not necessarily to attack this knight. You understand that? This knight is coming to here and here. He may very well be looking to gain better control of one of those two squares instead of attacking the knight as such. Well, Bronstein brings the other knight to e2, and the pawn does take the pawn. Again, the central discussion that so happens in chess. Now, we have an imbalance. Can you notice it? And I mean, every game has lots of imbalances throughout the course of the game. At this particular point, the imbalance is the material is even. Everyone has the same number of pieces, so that's not an imbalance. The imbalance here is Bronstein has 3 central pawns, while his opponent only has maybe 1, possibly 2. There's less pawns in the center here for his opponent than Bronstein. You see that? I just want to point this out so that you can see that, yes, even Grandmasters today use the imbalances. Check to the king. Now can you see that each person has roughly the same development? At this point in time, there's not a huge lead in development from one or the other. Black is trying to pick up steam. He's hitting the center again. Now watch. One of the classic rules here, right? The Steinitz anti-knight rule. Bronstein has the central pawns. That's an imbalance, and he pursues this. So, we can see he now has greater central space. It appears his opponent seems to have more on the wings because of his pieces here, right? Putting pins on his two knights, but Bronstein has the central space. This is the idea of how imbalances work, right? So to answer the inquirer's question, yes, imbalances happen in absolutely every single chess game ever played by any grandmaster right up to today. Right now, if they're playing a game right now while I'm making this video, somewhere off in the world, they're using the imbalances, I promise. Well, we've got a central attack here. Someone wants to claim the center. Bronstein says that is fine by me. I also want the center. You see, it's always a battle. Now here is the taking of the first power, and the queen takes the knight back, and the queen comes and takes out one of Bronstein's central pawns. So, as we observe the pieces in the board, what do we see? And I'm doing the Silman imbalance idea very simplistically. I take a half hour to explain it. As we train to look for the imbalances, positions, tactics, it only can take just a few seconds. It doesn't take you a full half hour to figure out all the imbalances, right? I take my time to explain it so that it's a learning video for us. Each one has only one knight. Both players have both bishops. At this point, Bronstein's opponent's bishop is more active. So what's this going to tell us? If it's a bishop's game, what do you know right now, automatically, with no guesswork whatsoever? The board is going to be open, isn't it? The grandmasters will strive mightily to actually go out of their way and exchange pawns. They want it wide open. This is not a surmise. It's not a cross your fingers and hope it works. They make it work. This is proper imbalance strategy. Well, his opponent took a central pawn. Bronstein doesn't get behind the material. He takes the g7 pawn. Right? So now they're pawn picking. Now watch. The bishop takes the second knight of Bronstein. And now we have a greater emphasis of the imbalance, just so we understand. I'm reviewing this. You don't have to review this for 10 minutes every move you make in a game. The bishop and the knight, and the bishop and the bishop. That's an imbalance that's worth knowing, right? When your opponent has both bishops, absolutely, you want to try to trade one off. Because if he has both bishops, he commands both colors on the squares, on the diagonals, right? It's much easier to manage. Bronstein in this game, if he can keep his bishops, is going to have an easier time with this game than his opponent, who only has the light squared bishop, which is his bad bishop. Not useless yet, but it's bad. It's not really going to go anywhere for the moment, right? You see that? So this is the idea of imbalances. Just recognizing, okay, things have changed. Things have changed. The pawn structure has changed. Doubled pawns. One is actually attacking the queen now. You see. See how this works? Not that that means it's a weakness, but I mean, there's no point in letting the little pawn attack that majestic, mighty lady. She backhands him off the board. Away with you, peon. Check to the king, a heck of a fork to the rook. Now, how come Bronstein, a world-class chess player, allow this kind of ridiculous amateur tactic to happen to him? Does it matter? The point is, the tactic happened to even one of the greatest grandmasters. The tactics like forks and things like that happen to everyone, just like losses and wins do. Notice, Bronstein's opponent is not just going to go grab that rook. He's nervous about his rook being taken and being put in check. Why? Well, can you see? Simple. If he comes here, Bronstein has 1, 2. He gets a piece up. You see that? If he comes here and the king has gone here, there's just too much that Bronstein can do, so he forgoes taking the rook because of the position of the queen, and he protects his other rook. He doesn't want to lose an extra power. Now, again, emphasizing on purpose, and I'm overdoing it on purpose, I understand. This is great emphasis for me too, you guys. Bronstein uses his bishop in a nice open board. And now he's threatening almost mate, right? Very powerful position here. He's using his bishops. He doesn't have a lot of pawn structure. It's not a cramped game, it's a blown open game. Now the other knight comes to excellent defensive duty. There's nothing wrong with defense. There's nothing wrong with playing defense. It's when you begin to completely react to every one of your opponent's moves that it gets a little iffy. What's Bronstein do? Development. Again, another one of the imbalances. Who's better developed? At this point, I would have to say Bronstein. Who's better off? There's no question. Bronstein's position here is quite powerful. Wouldn't you agree? Sincerely. He's got the minor pieces really well activated. Now compare the minor pieces, again, one of the imbalances, the bishops, compare them with this knight that is doing defensive duty only, and the bishop who is at least 2 moves away from getting into this game. In 2 moves, Bronstein can have the game done. So the advantage again of the minor pieces, an imbalance. The advantage again of the extra central space, again, an imbalance. The advantage again of superior development, more force out in the field, and because he has the extra space and more force, even on the king side now, as well as the center, his pieces coordinate beautifully, right? All of this is imbalances. It helps us in understanding our game, the game of chess. Well, his opponent wants to try to get more space. He's obviously not very comfortable and happy. I don't hesitate whatsoever to show you the very next move, which is simply dandy. Can you guess? A grandmaster. He has superior development. He has superior kingside space. Is he satisfied? Nope. What's he going to do about it? He's going to improve his position. How is he going to improve his position? He's going to use his whole army. Guess what's not developed yet? And guess where it can certainly go in a sweet spot? The rook on the open file. And you say, that file's not open. Watch. Not yet, but it's gonna be. So now he's gonna get to the point to where he can activate his bishop and rook. You notice Bronstein's only left one rook, and he can't castle. He hasn't castled yet. He can't castle now, but he still has less undeveloped than his opponent. Of course, the pawn goes. Now the whole king side's obliterated. It's weak entirely. The queen comes to here, check to the king. The king dodges up here to g3. Is not this wild? King wide open in g3 land, and now the knight starts coming to the fore on an outpost. It's permanent if he wishes. There's no pawns to speak of from Bronstein's side because he's emphasizing his bishops, right? Well, this gives his opponent excellent outpost for his knight, and what do you see him doing? He's trying to put his knight out here. Bronstein has made all of his pieces superior to the counterparts of his opponent, and now his opponent's beginning to catch up in development and excellence of placement of the pieces. You see how it seesaws back and forth. It's very important, but Bronstein has a spectacular move here because of his spectacular chess strategy with his spectacular rook getting on a spectacular open file that's not really open. But he loses the exchange on purpose. Watch how Bronstein handles this. Pow! What a shot! Look at that thrust there. With the rook! Now, his opponent takes it with the queen because he likes the idea of the two pawns together here. Not doubled in the center where they can be blocked. This is good. To exchange with that pawn would have been a gross error. Even though it would have gave him the open file, it might have been a mistake because the bishop can come up and block those pawns and there'll be a permanent weakness. Then they become targets. See, we learn all this as we practice going through the Grandmaster games. Now the bishop. Check to the king. Now the bishop comes up and shows its power in an open field and an open board because it's the superior minor piece as opposed to that other very bad, very inactive, virtually worthless bishop. And the king comes to h4. Interesting. Look how wide open Bronstein's king is. And his opponent can't get to him. He further closes down the center against his bishop. This ain't gonna fly. Bronstein says, thank you very much. I'm gonna put my bishops to work. I am gonna use my bishops excellently. The queen comes up here kind of hovering next to her honey, putting her enemy's honey in check, and he drops down to h3. Now the rook comes up finally to challenge the little lady over here on the edge of the board. Because Bronstein has the superior minor pieces, he has the superior tactics. Because Bronstein has carefully crafted the board, opening it, getting completely rid of all the pawns. He has an open field. Because of this, he now has superior tactic capability if he can keep his eye on the tactics. And boy, does he keep his eye on the tactics. Look at that pin. Is that beautiful? The queen, the bishop, all working in concert, all combined together. Black is reduced to a purely defensive role because white has the superior minor pieces and he's using them excellently. Finally, the king has to move. Doesn't matter. Now he's back even with the exchange. You remember earlier he took the knight with the rook, which further opened up the field here for his bishops. Now he's got it back. Now, of course, the queen dodges down, and now it's a showdown between the ladies. They're having a beauty contest, and they're attempting to see whose wig is prettier, the black lady's wig or the red lady's wig. And in the meantime, the pesky bishop comes up and he says, "Yo, hey, king, confess thy sins to me. You're in trouble." Because he has the superior minor piece. He has the superior tactics. Right? The king comes up. Now, can you tell me honestly why there's no way on this side of the green pastures of Cloverdale that the bishop takes, or that the king takes that bishop? I'll show you why. You can see it. It's obvious. There should never be any question. If you were black, you take that bishop, you're finished. Can you see why? It's critical to always analyze the board. You know it is because he's going to come and grab that open file, don't you? There's no guesswork here. There's no, well, gee, maybe he won't see it. Oh, yes, he will. Anybody who knows anything about chess is going to see that central open file with a king in it if the king's right there. I promise. Your opponent will always see that. And if he doesn't, never assume he won't. Right? So it makes sense that now he loses the queen. Besides. But he wants to keep that rook at bay, and he's not stupid enough to want to lose his queen. So he has to dodge down. That's why the bishop was immune from attack, even though the bishop's undefended. The idea was he was trying to make the king take him so that he could take away the defender of the queen. But black went to here instead. So now what does Bronstein do? Oh, he yawns and he says, that's okay, I'll go check. Check to the king. Watch what his opponent does. Now, when you're in that position, there really is only one thing you can do. Honest. You just simply have to exchange the queens. There's no question about it. It's time to get the ladies off of the chessboard. Because he has the superior minor piece, the bishop, he plops it right there and says check. Fantastic tactic. He can afford to lose his bishop in order to take the queen. Because if the king takes the bishop, then the queen is lost. So black resigned at that point. So what we've seen here in this particular game is an illustration of several of the imbalances that Jeremy Silman's chess course talks about, and the strategies, as well as some great tactics. We saw the central battle, the central emphasis of space, the kingside space, the superior development, and because the minor pieces were exchanged to where Bronstein had both bishops, then Bronstein made sure that the board was wide open, which helps his bishops. You notice his opponent's bishop never even got into this game. You notice his opponent's rook never even got into this game. Bronstein had the superior minor pieces, which is one of the big imbalances. He had the superior development. He ended up having the superior space. He never got a castle, and his king was sitting out here in the wide open, and his opponent couldn't even get to him because he used his superior minor pieces so masterfully. That's why it's so great to study these Grandmaster games, isn't it? Anyway, that's the Chessercise for tonight. Thank you for joining me and watching the chess videos that I produce. I enjoy them. I enjoy making them for you. It helps me prepare for my tournaments, which I've got one coming up in exactly 7 days from now. And happy checkmating, and happy chessercising, and happy chess studying. May the gods of chess be with you. Nanu, Nanu. For those of you who are old as I am, you'll recognize this. For those of you who aren't, you younger generation, bummer, man. You missed one of the funniest sitcoms in all of television. It propelled a very famous comedian into stardom, and we've been watching his phenomenal movies ever since. So, it's time for me to bid thee all adieu. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next video.